Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of where Issei was the reincarnation of the Kaiju Destoroyah. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Now let's get into part 3. Third person POV. Weddings. A time full of joy and happiness. Well, that's what it appears to be on the outside. On the inside, it's full of pity and jealousy. But maybe there are some weddings that are good. Why did I agree to come to one? Issei sighed in annoyance. Issei, I can't believe you forced me to do this. Koneko, I told you, he invited us, and we're gonna go. Currently, Issei Hideo was standing still as Koneko was adjusting a tie on his new outfit. Both of them were dressed up like they were going to some fancy dinner party, or wedding. Koneko wore a light blue dress that almost resembled Cinderella's from that old movie that Disney made ages ago. She wasn't much of a fan of the color, but it wasn't the worst thing she had worn. All the other outfits she had tried on made her practically naked, and that was the thing she needed. She knew that if she went with any other outfit, any perverted devils would try something stupid, and unless they want to end up like the fat bastard that tried to rape her a while back, they will be smart and stay clear from her. Koneko. Would you hold still? I can't straighten this if you keep moving. Issei sighed in annoyance. He didn't want to be doing this since he was aware of his time. Issei. Okay, that's it. Issei gently pushed Koneko back and ripped the tie off his neck. It was strangling him anyways. But just like Koneko, the brown-haired boy was also dressed up for the occasion. He wore a black suit with a whipple white shirt underneath, long black pants, and black shoes. Koneko took the liberty of fixing his hair, making it look more stylish. Koneko. You look handsome, senpai. Issei deadpanned Koneko. She had been acting very weird after he beat the shit after Riser Phoenix. She's been more clingy to him and aggressive to any woman that gets close to him. The brown-haired boy can't tell if she is becoming at Sundere or Yandere. Then again, either just makes her look even cuter. Issei. And you look adorable, kitty. He leans towards her neck and began to kiss and lick it. This caused Koneko's face to become bright red as steam started to come out of her head. Issei chuckled as he adjusted his collar. He really didn't want to be doing this, but he has no other choice, and besides, the invite said that there would be some good food, and that is the only reason he was going. Issei could literally care less about the event, he just wants to eat some food. That is all he wants, though he hopes he doesn't run into anyone that will annoy the shit out of him. Koneko hugged his arm, and the two stepped into the circle that was with the invitation, and it began to glow. Issei. Let's get this over with. With that, both Issei and Koneko disappeared from where they were and reappeared in the underworld, in front of a massive devil's house that was decorated with some wedding things. They weren't the only ones to arrive, as both Kiba and Asia soon appeared wearing their outfits as well. Kiba wore a whole pink suit, making Issei believe that either he actually bought it or his suit got mixed with someone's washing machine with red clothes. Asia, on the other hand, had a whole red outfit that just screamed the word sexy. A few of the male devils that were outside stared, but they turned away when they saw Kiba's menacing glare. This surprised Issei since he didn't think that Kiba would ever have it in him. Turns out the pretty boy of Ko Academy has a dark side. Asia hugs Kiba's arm as he smiled and kissed her cheek, which made Issei shocked, and he quickly figured that they were dating. Issei? Excuse me, what? When was this a thing? Koneko simply stared, her amber eyes widening a little as she was also shocked by what she had just witnessed. Koneko? I don't know. I'm just finding out about this too. Kiba and Asia noticed both Issei and Koneko. They smiled as they walked over to the brown-haired boy and the white-haired girl. Kiba? Issei, Koneko. Hello? Asia? Hi, you too. Koneko waved at the blonde. Issei? Okay, first. Really, Kiba, a pink suit. Kiba. It was the only thing I had because my black tuxedo got dirty. Asia. That's my fault. Issei. What did you do, Asia? Asia. Long story? Issei sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. He was not gonna ask, the less he knows the better. Issei. Okay. And when were you two a thing? Asia blushed as Kiba scratched the back of his head, chuckling nervously. Kiba, you see, during your 10-day disappearance, Issei, metamorphosis. Kiba, Asia was very upset, so I decided to be the one to cheer her up as best I could. Sure, a few attempts failed, but I got her to smile, and after that, we continued to hang out even while training. Koneko. And you became a thing. Asia nodded her head as she hugged Kiba's arm tightly, causing him to blush slightly as he looked away. Originally, he wasn't sure about dating Asia since Issei was the one who saved her life from Rainer, but the brown-haired boy doesn't look like he's angry at him, so maybe he is in the clear. Asia? Yeah, and I feel safer with Kiba. Issei? Well, at least you found someone you like. I did think of you more like a little sister. Asia looked at Issei and gave him a smile, one that a little sister would give to her big brother. Asia? Thank you, big bro. Issei chuckled and nodded his head. He patted her head as she and Kiba walked off somewhere else. Koneko looked at Issei and gave him a small smirk. He noticed this and raised an eyebrow. Issei. What? Koneko. Oh, nothing. Big bro senpai. Issei playfully rolled his head at Kaneko's words. She was definitely not the type to tease someone. She should not be doing that. Also, Issei's mind was currently on other more important things. For example, he can't sense the red-haired bitch and her slut of a queen. This confused him since he should have been able to sense them both in an instant. Actually, the tides of the world felt off to Issei. He wasn't sure why, but he had a feeling that something, or rather someone familiar to Issei, was about to crash his life. Issei sighed and shook his head. Issei. Well, that was nice for a solid 2 minutes. Koneko nodded her head as she and Issei made their way inside the house. When they did, they were greeted by Bob, who had a smile on his face. Bob? Ah, Koneko and Issei. So glad you could make it. Koneko smiled. Koneko? We wouldn't miss this, Bob, right, Issei-senpai? She looked at the brown-haired boy, who silently sighed to himself. Might as well act like he was gonna enjoy this party. Issei? Yeah, we wouldn't miss the man that everyone loves. We wouldn't miss his big day. Bob, that's great to hear. Snacks are on the left, the bathroom is down the hall, and the gaming room is currently occupied at the moment. Meanwhile, currently inside the gaming room, Azazel, Governor General of the Fallen Angels, was busy gaming away on the new Wars and game. He was also invited to the wedding, but he only cared about getting some W's under his belt, and that was basically it. No one has been able to get into the room for 3 hours, and no one dares try to kick him out, fearing his power. Azazel. It's not camping, it's called being a strategist. Well, go fuck yourself, kid. Oh, just wait until I marry your mom, cause your ass is gonna be grounded when I'm your father. Act Issei and Koneko. Issei? I see. Bob? Yeah, but feel free to enjoy yourselves at the party. Koneko smiled. Koneko? We will, Bob. Here's a little something. Issei watched as Koneko handed Bob a present. The brown-haired boy didn't bother getting a present for the devil, since he can just say that both he and Koneko got it for him. Why buy for 2 separate gifts? You only need to buy a single one and say that you both bought it. Bob, thank you both. Koneko. It's no problem. I can't wait for the wedding to start. Bob, well, it should be starting very soon. But until then, enjoy yourselves. Koneko. We will. Bob walked away as Issei and Koneko headed to the snack table. When they arrived, Issei saw that the table was scattered with so many different types of food, some that he knows and some that he has never seen before. He didn't think much of it as he grabbed one of the snacks and started to eat without a care in the whole world. Maybe this won't be a complete waste of his time after all. Oniko grabbed some cake and sweets. This made Issei chuckle as he knew desserts were her favorite meal. Issei, don't eat too much, kitty, or else you're gonna get sick. Oniko nods in response, understanding what he means as the two enjoyed their food. They talked, and they waited as people were enjoying the party before the wedding started. Hell, even Kiba and Asia were enjoying themselves. It wasn't hard to find them both since Kiba was wearing a bright pink suit, so spotting him was like giving a dog a machine gun, and now that Issei thinks about it, Don't even give a dog a machine gun. Actually, don't give any animal any kind of weapon since that could lead to so many deaths. Not that Issei cares about people around him. The only ones he cares about are Koneko, Kiba, Asia, his parents, Sona, and his two friends from Kwa. Speaking of which, Issei wonders how those two are. It had been a while since he had seen them, and he is pretty sure that they must have been devastated when he disappeared for 10 days straight. Issei, maybe I should give them a visitor a call. As Issei was thinking, he soon felt someone touch his shoulder. The brown-haired boy looked and saw that it was Koneko who had finished her cake. Issei, what's up, kitty? Koneko, what are you thinking of? Issei crossed his arms. Issei, just thinking of my two friends. Koneko, Baldy and Four Eyes. Issei chuckled at the nicknames. He had to admit those were some pretty stupid yet funny ones, but in the end, he simply nodded his head. Issei, yeah. Been a while since I've seen them. Koneko, you should go visit them because they are pretty worried about you. Issei? Maybe. I'll think about it. Koneko, okay, senpai. Issei smiled as Koneko went back to eating. The brown-haired boy remained where he stood, bored out of his mind. When the hell was this bloody wedding gonna start? Like Jesus. Issei let out a small sigh. Issei, when is this wedding gonna start? Koneko, I'm not sure, senpai. Just then, a devil came into the room and looked at everyone. Devil, alright everyone. The wedding is about to begin. Please make your way to the backyard. They all nodded as they made their way to the backyard. Issei and Koneko made their way to their seats and quickly sat down. The white-haired girl had a small smile on her face as she was excited to see the wedding, while Issei, on the other hand, just wanted this to be over with. But he had to admit that he was pretty happy for him, as he really is running out of ideas for his stories if he's doing this like this. What's next to collab with another author and their story? Issei feels like he just jinxed himself. A guest saw the soon-to-be married couple walking down to the altar. How the two met was a funny story. Issei didn't know or care to know the full details. But he was getting married to someone named San, who almost had the same personality as Bob. Either way, San was the youngest of 3 brothers. His 2 older brothers' names were Nai and Ichi. Thinking about this now, Issei feels like that is meant to be a call-out to some sort of media. The 2 men stood on the altar and looked at everyone. They smiled as they looked back at one another. Silence filled the air, and after a few seconds, the wedding started. Wedding priest. We are gathered here today to celebrate the union between Bob and Sam. Never in my time have I ever seen a love this powerful. It brings tears of joy to my eyes being here today to announce this beautiful ceremony. Bob and Sam smiled and held each other's hands. Wedding priest. I have been a part of many ceremonies, one of which being the marriage between Sergius and his wife, Graphia. But I can happily say, the love between these two before me is more powerful than even one of the 4 great Satans. The words nearly brought tears to the people watching. The only one not affected was Issei for obvious reasons. Koneko, on the other hand, held on to the brown-haired boy's hands, which he was all right with. Wedding priest. Bob, do you take Sam to be your lawfully wedding husband? In sickness and in health, till death do you part? Bob. Yes, I do, wedding priest. And San, do you take Bob to be your lawfully wedding husband? In sickness and in health, till death do you part? San? Yes, I do. The wedding priest smiled as both San and Bob placed their rings on each other's fingers. Wedding priest. Well, with the power vested in me by Sergex, you are now husband and husband, you may kiss the groom. At that moment, both Bob and Sam kissed each other on the lips. When that happened, the people in the audience began clapping as tears of joy ran down their faces. Never in their entire lives had they seen something so beautiful and majestic before, easily the best wedding of everything. Ichi smiled as he looked at Nai. Ichi? Are you crying? Nai. And no? Shut up. Both Bob and San smiled as they rested against each other's forehead, causing people to start taking pictures of the sight before them. Meanwhile, with Rias, back in the small town of Kwa, a small house stood not too far from the school, Kwa Academy. This home belonged to Rias Gremory. When she came to the human world for the first time, Her parents arranged a home that could act as a base of operation for her. Though she soon decided that her base of operation would be the Occult Research Club, she kept her home as like a backup just in case something happened to the clubroom. Within Ria's home, silence was all that could be heard as the blinds were all down, preventing all the sunlight from entering the building. The place was very clean, signaling that Rias has done her part and kept her quote-unquote home clean while she was in the human world. However, something happened within the home. Inside the bathroom was a crimson-red cocoon that appeared to be attached to the walls by some glowing yellow silk. The cocoon pulsed as the sound of a heartbeat echoed throughout the room. The heartbeat was loud yet slow enough to the point that no passing human would get suspicious. Ria's Gremory was currently going through her metamorphosis due to her agreement with the god of the void. With each second that passes, her body is changing shape inside the chrysalis. Muscles, bones, organs, skin. It was all becoming liquefied so it could be easier for the change. However, the brain was the only thing that wasn't changing. The brain was telling her genes to liquefy her entire body. Every muscle, bone, organ, and skin to liquefy except for the brain. Once that's done, her brain will tell her genes to reform again into a new body. A better one and a stronger one. The process may take some time, but Rias knows this. She is sort of aware of her surroundings. She can hear everything that is going on around her, though she is not able to see for obvious reasons. But that matters little to her. Just then, from within the cocoon, a hand was placed against it, followed by a glowing red eye that almost burned a hole in the chrysalis. Not long now until completion. A new Rias will soon be born. Third-person POV. You know, I have never been the type of person to like going to church. It was so annoying and pointless. But there are those who care about going to church. I know one, or should I say I used to know one. Knock knock. Akeno was knocking on Rias' bedroom door, trying to wake her king up since the sun had risen over the horizon not too long ago. Akeno. Rias. Are you awake yet? It's 10:30. Akeno received no response from the other side, which confused her. There was no way that Rias could still be sleeping at a time like this. She knew her king, and every single day she woke up around 6 or 7 early in the morning to head to Kwa Academy to do some paperwork. Something felt off to Akeno, but she wasn't sure why. Standing in front of Rias' room filled her with an emotion that she rarely ever felt in her day-to-day life. Shaking this feeling off, Akeno decided to knock on the door once again. Maybe Rias didn't hear her. Knock knock. Akeno? Rias, you awake? Just like before, silence was all that the black-haired girl received, and this was making her worried. Rias never acts like this. Just what was going on in the house? Akeno. Rias, I'm coming in. The black-haired girl opened the door and was greeted by the dark room. She walked inside, and to her surprise, Rias wasn't on her bed at all. In fact, the bedroom looked like some sort of battle had taken place, since the sheets were all over the place, the bed was flipped, there were destroyed books and much more scattered across the wooden floor. Akeno was surprised because Rias' room was normally tidy. She looked around for her king and explored the room. Akeno. Rias. You here? Akeno had never been in her king's room before. She always wondered what it would be like, but she never expected any of this. Something didn't add up. Was there an attack? That couldn't be the case, since the rest of the house appeared to be fine, and there was no shattered glass or unlocked doors. Rias also placed a barrier around her house so only members of her Puriger family could teleport inside the home she has, in human words, so the idea of there being an attacker can be ruled out. Akeno also noted that Rias was perfectly fine the last time she saw her. What had happened during the week they had been away from each other? Suddenly, she heard a sound coming from the bathroom, and Akeno began to worry more for her king as she slowly approached the door. Akeno. Rias, is that you? The queen slowly reached for the door and pushed it open, hoping to find her king on the other side of the door and not injured. And when the door was opened, she saw something that completely shocked her. It was Rias, but she looked different. Akeno's eyes widened as she saw that her best friend had changed over the 1 week she was away. Rias changed so much to the point that she can barely recognize her. Her crimson red hair was longer and darker. Her eyes also had changed from a bright blue to a more crimson red color, giving her an almost sinister appearance. Rias, hello Akeno. Akeno, Rias. What has happened to you? Rias simply giggled at her friend's question. This sent a shiver of fear down Akeno's spine, which was a surprise to her since she was the one who took pleasure from either feeling or unleashing pain upon others. But hearing that giggle from Rias filled her with fear, making her take a step back. Rias? Let's just say, I went through a little change. Akeno? What kind of change? Rias smiled as she walked up to Akeno, getting right in her face and staring into her queen's terrified eyes. Rias? You will learn soon enough, my dear. She kisses her forehead before exiting the bathroom. Akeno was dumbfounded at what happened and blushed when Rias kissed her forehead. So many questions were flowing through her mind right now. The main one was what had happened to Rias. Just a week ago she was her usual self who had only found out that Issei, her pawn, had gone to the Phoenix household not to save her but to only pick up Koneko and leave. He said that he didn't care about what would happen to her, saying that she could marry Riser for all he cared. Akeno remembered Rias' brother, Surzex, telling her and Akeno to rest and take a week off from school so he could find out what was going on. Of course, they obeyed his orders. He was one of the 4 great Satans. But even during all that, Rias wasn't what she was currently. How and what happened to her to make her go through this change she speaks of. But she decided to question it later and follow her king, who was now cleaning her room after exiting the bathroom. Rias. Wow. It's like a tornado came through this place. Akeno. What happened here anyways? Rias picked up a book from the ground, her crimson eyes gazing over to Akeno, who was simply standing where she was, still unsure about her king's new appearance and personality. Rias? Let's just say, I had a party. Akeno was confused and felt a shiver down her spine when Rias spoke like that. Rias? Now be a good girl and help me clean up. Akeno? Why yes, my lady. Akeno walked over and picked up the torn pages, the sheets, and the broken books. Rias watched as Akeno worked. The dark crimson red-haired groom could feel the difference in her and her queen's strength now. She has to admit that she was very pleased with the results of the week-long struggle she had to endure. With all of that over now, she can use her newly obtained power to finally show why she will be the strongest, plus complete the promise that she told her acquaintant. I'm Skip, brought to you by Rias watching Akeno. After they finished cleaning the room as they headed to the main room. Rias. Now then, tell me Akeno, what has happened during the week? Rias sat down on a chair and crossed her legs, resting her head on a fist she formed as she looked at Akeno, who had walked into the kitchen to make her king some breakfast. She guessed that she was probably hungry, but she didn't want to anger her king by not saying anything. But she can't help but feel strange near Rias. The dark crimson red-haired devil girl gave off a very strange aura that Akeno wasn't sure how to describe it. Akeno. Well, the 4 great Satans and the Devil Council had a meeting. Rias. What was it? Akeno. It was about to say. Rias fell silent for a moment, but she soon grew a small yet slightly noticeable smile. But this smile wasn't one of happiness, it was one that some sort of villain would have if their plan was going as they expected. Rias? I see, good. Akeno shivered from Rias' tone. She continued to make her king some breakfast as Rias watched. Rias? Did they tell you every single detail? Akeno shook her head. Akeno? No. I'm afraid I wasn't told much. Hearing this caused Rias to sigh slightly in annoyance. Of course, they wouldn't tell her anything. Those old fools believe that they can handle everything themselves. Little do they know they are powerless. Mainly because they don't know that Issei was the reincarnation or a host of a being that could possibly be a threat to the universe. Akeno. But your brother wants to talk to you about something. Hearing this caused Rias to raise an eyebrow. Rias? Oh. Does he now? Akeno nodded her head. Rias? Well, he can wait a little bit. I have some things I want to do. Akeno looked at her curiously, wondering what Rias' plans were. Rias looked at Akeno, knowing what she was thinking. Rias, don't worry, my dear. All my plans will be revealed in time. Akeno? Oh, okay. Rias giggled as Akeno brought her king her breakfast, compared to the foods served in the underworld, the ones in the human world have more flavor. But that didn't mean that the meals from the underworld were trash, each have its good and bad. Rias grabbed her knife and fork, and cut the pancakes and took small bites. Rias? Delicious as always, Akeno. Akeno, thank you, my lady. Rias' crimson eyes gazed at Akeno as she smirked. Rias? You deserve a reward. Akeno? Akeno tilted her head in confusion. Why would she need a reward for making a simple breakfast? Rias stood up from her seat, her eyes seemingly shining slightly as she got right up in Akeno's face. Rias. What's the matter? Don't you want a reward from your king? By Akeno. What is it? Rias giggled and caressed the black-haired devil girl's cheek. She then smiled and leaned towards her ear. Rias. Something you will never forget. Suddenly, Rias pinned Akeno against the ground. This shocked the queen as she was taken completely by surprise. Akeno, Rias. What are you doing? Rias only smirked at Akeno's question. Was she really this stupid, or was she actually excited about this? Rias, like I said, it's something you will never forget. Akeno wasn't sure what it was, but whatever it was, she had a feeling that she won't like it. But she can't disobey her king or else she will be marked as a stray devil, and that is the last thing she wants even if Rias has gone through some sort of change, so she let her king do whatever she wants with her. Akeno, oh okay, Rias. Rias smirked and licked her lips. Rias? Good girl. Meanwhile with Issei. Issei was currently in his bedroom sleeping soundly, but that all changed when his bloody alarm clock went off. The one silent room was replaced by the echoes of his enigma alarm, which he quickly destroyed by slamming his fist on it. Though this also caused his and the nearby houses to shake from the impact, it appeared that what Issei had just done didn't cause anything on the surface. That can be said for places such as the planet's core and the underworld which felt the impact. In fact, the force from Issei's lamb was so powerful that it caused a total of 1,000 earthquakes to happen within the underworld. At the same time, Issei growled in annoyance. Issei. So fucking loud. He sat up in his bed and started to crack his head, getting some very satisfying cracks that may or may not be him actually snapping his neck. Luckily, he had his regeneration, so even if he did accidentally snap his own neck, he could easily fix it in a matter of seconds. However, while he was sitting up he soon felt something stuck in his teeth. This confused him and he raised an eyebrow at this. Issei quickly turned one of his fingers and started to try and pick whatever was stuck in his teeth out. He did this for a few seconds as he finally got whatever it was. He grabbed it and quickly checked, seeing that it was a human finger. Issei, a finger. Any regular person would instantly freak out, but Issei wasn't normal, and he hasn't been ever since he got back from his 10-day vacation. Also, after his little one-sided battle with Riser Phoenix, who may or may not be dead. Anyways, Issei has gotten better use of the Phoenix powers, and he can easily say that it will be a perfect addition to his arsenal. He never realized that being able to turn into flames would be so helpful. All the possibilities, all the advantages, all the torture he can unleash upon others is so tempting. The mere thoughts bring a smile to the brown-haired boy's face, but not your regular one. The smile that Issei had was the one that villains had when their plans were going how they hoped it would happen. However, back to the more important thing at hand. The finger, Issei. Oh yeah? Now I remember, that was a fun time. Flashback start. Nighttime had risen over the small town of Kwa. Silence had filled the streets as people started to turn off their lights and drift off to their dream worlds. The cold night wind blew through the leaves on the trees as it was peaceful, with the casual noise from a cricket or two. However, not everyone was sound asleep, dreaming of either flying or becoming rich. Standing on top of a building, observing the entire town was none other than Issei Heidu himself, the latter's eyes glowing, which illuminated the darkness around him a little. He stared at the town below him with an expression of disgust. His eyes burned with hatred as he despised the fact that he has to pretend to care about those who live within such a place. The only one he truly cares for is Koneko, and that was because she belongs to him. If anyone touches what is his, then they shall end up as their so-called god did all those years ago. Issei growled as he gripped a metal pole that was on top of the building. Slowly the metal pole began to turn red and started to melt from the boy's grip. Issei. This world, no, this universe. I am disgusted by it. Soon, it will all change. Suddenly, Issei's ears perked up as he heard a noise from below. His gaze turned to the source of the noise, and he saw a small family which was made up of a father, a mother, and their daughter which looked 4 or 5 years old. The brown-haired boy watched them walk down the street together, a small sinister grin forming on his face as he licked his teeth with a long, almost serpent-like tongue. Issei. I was starting to get hungry. The back of Issei's shirt began to grow as a pair of wings sprouted from his back. With one flap he took off to the sky with blinding speed. The family walked down the street, the mother and father holding each other hands as they watched their daughter hump to herself. They went out for some family time, and now that it was getting late, the trio decided that they will head back home and get some sleep so they can start a brand new day. The mother looked at her daughter, who continued to herself. She smiled as the humming almost sounded like she was singing. Mother? That's beautiful humming, sweetie. The little girl looked over at her mother and smiled at her sweetly. Little girl. Thanks, Mommy. I heard you sing one time and I wanted to try, but I'm not really good. The father chuckled as he ruffled his daughter's hair. Father, it's all right, sweetheart. Keep practicing and I'm sure that you will be as go as your mother, maybe even better. This caused the little girl to get excited as she looked at her father with stars in her eyes, like how they do it in certain anime like One Piece. Little girl. Really? The mother giggled at how excited her daughter sounded as her husband nodded his head at his child. Father? Of course, sweetheart. This brought another smile to the young Missy's face as they continued their walk home. As they were walking through, the little girl was starting to get some distance from her parents. Mother, don't go too far, sweetie. The little girl stopped right next to an alleyway and looked over at her mother. Little girl. Don't worry, Mommy, I won. However, the little girl didn't get to finish her sentence as she was soon grabbed by a long tail and pulled into the alleyway. Seeing what just happened before they caused their eyes to widen in complete and utter shock and horror, fear started to take over them as they worried that their daughter had just been kidnapped before them. Both. Sweetie, sweetheart. They ran over to the alleyway and without thinking, they ran into it looking for their daughter. Mother? Sweetie? Father? Where are you, sweetheart? They looked around for their daughter, hearing her muffled cries which soon went silent. The father soon looked at the mother, placing a hand on her shoulder which caused her to look at her husband. Father? Don't worry, we will find her. However, before the wife could utter a word to her husband, a small yet loud dark chuckle echoed throughout the alleyway which filled the two with dread when they heard it. I don't think so. Hearing the voice send shivers down the two parents' spines, it was unlike any voice they had heard before. It sounded like something out of a horror movie. If it was one, then they don't want to be a part of it anymore. Father W, who are you? Where is our daughter? However, the only response they got was the growl of some kind of monster, and it was one that wasn't too happy either. You dare talk to me, lower life form? Disgusting. Mother, tell us where our daughter is. The voice went silent as they heard something hit the ground. This confused them as they looked down, and when they did, their eyes widened at what they saw. It was a head. It was their daughter's decapitated head. Just right there in front of them, dried tear marks on her cheeks. The mother gasped and covered her mouth as she wanted to puke from the sight before her, tears threatening to run down her face. The father was left absolutely speechless and horrified at the sight of their daughter's decapitated head. Soon he clenched his hand into a fist and gritted his teeth in anger. Father! You bastard! Show yourself, I'll kill you! The mother looked at the father, grabbing onto his arm. Mother? Honey, we gotta run. However, before the father could say anything to his wife, another dark chuckle echoed throughout the alleyway. That won't be happening. Suddenly, blood splattered onto the father's face. He wiped the blood off him and looked at his wife. His eyes widened as tears began to run down his cheeks. Not only had his daughter been killed, but now, his wife has joined her as well. She had been penetrated by hundreds of razor-sharp spikes that almost looked like they were made from scales. As wife coughed up blood, The crimson fluid poured from her holes like she was some kind of leaking water balloon. She could feel every single painful moment as she slowly looked at her husband with the little life she had left. Mother. Honey. Run. And with that, the wife went limp and she died before her husband, the life from her eyes now gone. The father was shaking in fear as he couldn't move at all. His mind was telling him, no, screaming at him to run away, but his body wasn't responding. Father. Why are you doing this? What do you want? Money. I'll give you money. Yet again, all the man had received was another chuckle as the air suddenly got a lot colder. The father was able to see his breath as it turns into a white mist. I don't want money, I'm a predator. I hunt and kill whatever I want, whenever I want to. I am death, I am carnage and chaos. But to truly answer your question, I'm just a destroyer. The father's eyes widened in complete and absolute fear from what he heard. His body didn't move at all. It was refusing to move at all. Goodbye, you disgusting insect. The man watched as a clawed hand reached out from the darkness for him. That was the last thing the father saw before his demise, which was easily more gruesome compared to his wife and daughter. Blood splattered across the alleyway walls as the father's body fell to the ground, creating a puddle of blood. From the darkness, Issei Hayadu walked out as his eyes appeared to be now glowing purple color. Issei, talk about pathetic. He looked at the bodies before him, growing a sinister grin as he licked his fangs with his long serpent-like tongue. Killing people is an excellent way to cure boredom, and the best part is, he gets a free meal out of it too. Talk about a win-win situation. The brown-haired boy spread his wings, unleashing a mighty and thunderous roar that filled the air and sent shivers down the spines of all who heard its call. Flashback end. Issei chuckled as he chucked the finger into his mouth and started to chew it. After a few seconds he swallowed it. Issei. Talk about a good time. Just then, Issei heard a groan and looked under his covers to see a sleeping Koneko, which brought a small smirk to his face. For the last week, Koneko has been sticking close to Issei and barely leaves his side. The only exceptions are when she needs to go grab some sweets. Issei isn't annoyed by this. Why would he, since he made it clear that Koneko belongs to him and him alone? What he does find annoying was his parents' reaction when they came home. Oh boy, when they found their son just chilling at home with Koneko, his mother nearly strangled him to the point that Issei wanted to tear their skulls from their bodies and punt them like footballs. But he didn't because he can just do that another time when they demanded to know where he was. Issei just told them that he found himself in the middle of the forest. Sounds ridiculous, and yet also believable since people have gotten lost in the forest that surrounds Kwa numerous times in the last. Anyways, his parents were glad that their son was alright and back home safely. I say. I hope they don't get involved with my business, not that I care about them. It will just be really annoying to hear my mother scream at me. Like seriously, can't that bitch learn to fuck off? Issei sighed to himself. He'll worry about all that in the future since he has a feeling that things will only become more and more hellish. The brown-haired boy soon felt Koneko budgeting to stir. He looked down at her as the white-haired devil girl began to open her amber eyes, letting out a yawn as Issei smirked. Issei. Morning, kitty? Koneko blushed at the nickname, but she soon smiled and did something adorable. Issei simply chuckled. Issei, that was cute. Koneko giggled as she crawled up and snuggled into Issei's chest, making the latter chuckle once again. However, their fun was soon ruined when they heard a knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Issei, Koneko, are you both awake? Issei had a feeling that it would be his mother's. She was always the one to come wake him up if he overslept. He sighed internally, annoyed that his fun was ruined, and looked over at the door. Issei? Yes, Mom, we're awake. Mickey? Good, breakfast is ready. Come down and eat. Issei? Yeah. We're coming. But that Issei's mom walked away from the door, leaving the two alone. Koneko pouted as she looked up at Issei, who was feeling the exact same as Koneko was feeling right now. They were just about to have some fun, yet the brown-haired boy's mother had to come and cock-block her son from doing anything with his kitty. Issei made a mental note to deal with that problem later. For now, they have to get up and go and eat breakfast. Issei sighed. Issei, come on kitty. Let's go eat. Koneko? Okay. The white-haired girl got off Issei, who stood up from his bed, revealing several claw marks on his back, which appeared to be painful. However, Issei wasn't bothered by the marks since his regeneration kicked in, and they were gone in a matter of seconds. Regeneration was really cool ability. But regeneration wasn't the only unique ability that he gained from his metamorphosis. Issei also gained one that allowed him to gain the powers that others have. Although, it wasn't like something from an anime or mana where he quote-unquote takes their powers, since the original user still has their powers. In reality, it was more like he absorbs the DNA of the target, which contains a small trace of the person's power. He then breaks it down and adds it to himself. The only way he can do this was either by drinking the blood or by touching the individual, which is both good and bad, since he won't be able to always get a new power added to his arsenal. But if he does, then he will be very glad. In fact, he was a certain power in mind that he would love to obtain. Issei grew a small smirk, his eyes glowing purple. Issei. Oh, I can't wait to get that power. Meanwhile, outside of an abandoned church, two figures with white cloaks and a hood, and one of them has a wrapped sword on the back. They entered the place and analyze it. It would seem that this place was a battlefield. Rumor has it that it had something to do with the devils. It's getting late. The first figure removed her hood to reveal that they were a girl with blue hair and a green stride. She then looked at her partner. Are you sure this is the right place, Irina? The one named Irina removed their hood to reveal that they were a girl with chestnut hair with twin ponytails. Irina? Of course, this is the right place, Zenobia. I used to live here 7 years ago. Give me a little credit. She then took out a photo that showed her younger self with Issei. She looked at the photo and smiled. Irina? You think he remembers me? Zenobia? I don't know. I do not know your friend. Let's just hope he isn't involved with the devils. Irina? Oh, we don't have to worry. Issei doesn't believe in the supernatural, plus he's harmless as a kitten. Zenobia raised an eyebrow at the chestnut-haired girl's words. For some reason she found her words doubtful. Back with Issei. Issei? Strange. I can feel something familiar at Ko Academy. Currently, both Issei and Koneko were making their way toward Ko Academy. They had left the brown-haired boy home not too long ago, but as they were walking something felt off to Issei. He can feel a presence that was very familiar to him, pure energy. One that he has not felt since the battle against God. An old friend since ancient days, but that can't be possible. The only one he can think of that resembles this is gone, sealed away in a place that they could not escape from. He can recall how weak their energy was, unable to even defend themselves from the weakest of creatures like devils, angels, and fallen angels. Isaac can recall the battle against the God of the Bible almost perfectly. The memories he obtained from his metamorphosis have shown him many things. A holy being, striving to stop two vicious bringers of death, destruction, and chaos. One was born from nothingness, and the other was created in an unknown way. Both attempted to bring the end of not only all life on earth, but the end of creation itself, since it was their only goal. They were vicious, merciless, brutal, and relentless. They weren't like most other monsters that only attacked and killed out of pure instinct. These two knew what they were doing and strived to complete it. Issei. I wonder, could it actually be? Narrowing his eyes, Issei would have to wait and see if it's who he actually thinks it is. As he and Koneko continued to walk, he soon felt the white-haired devil girl touch his shoulder, which made him look down at her. Issei. What's up, kitty? Koneko. In front of the school. Issei raised an eyebrow as he looked to Ko Academy. When he did, he saw two figures wearing white cloaks, and one of them seemed to have something wrapped on their back. Even though whatever it was on the person's back was wrapped up, Issei could sense a powerful aura of holy energy coming from it. Plus, with the way that it was shaped, he had a feeling that it was a holy sword. This made him wonder why someone using a holy sword would be doing in a devil's territory, even though it makes Issei sick just thinking this. But he hopes that Rias already knows about those two. Issei? Yeah, I wanna puke. Koneko? Who are they? Issei? Not sure, but one has a holy sword. This surprised Koneko. Koneko? You sure? Issei nodded his head. The brown-haired boy, and Koneko noticed that the two figures were talking to Sona and her queen, Tsubaki. Not wanting to get involved just yet, they decided to wait for the figures to leave, which didn't take long because from what Issei can see, they were just wrapping up. As they walked off, both Issei and Koneko made their way to Sona and Tsubaki. Issei. What was all that about? Sona and Tsubaki jumped as they quickly turned around to see who was behind them. To their relief, it was only Issei and Koneko. It nearly made Issei crack up laughing cause Sona almost leaked into her queen's arms, like something one would see in a Scooby-Doo DVD or movie. Speaking of which, Issei needs to set a reminder to get back into watching the entire franchise since it was really entertaining to watch when he was a kid. Sona. Issei. Don't do that, Issei chuckled. Issei. No promises, but who were those two? Sona sighed and shook his head knowing that Issei won't even keep a promise to her. Tsubaki. They were members of the church. Sona. They wanted to talk to Rias about something. Fearing this made Issei cross his arms and raise an eyebrow. Issei. What could they possibly want to talk the redhead bitch about? Sona. I'm not Sue. Now, Destoroyah. Is that any way to speak to an old friend? Everyone except Issei went stiff. The brown-haired boy's eyes started to glow purple as he turned around to the source of the voice and saw the very person who was the cause of his metamorphosis. The very person he thought loved him, the one he trusted. The person who lied, manipulated, tricked, betrayed. The one who had broken his heart, the very same heart that has been devoured by a monster. Rios Gremory. Well, that would be a lie. She wasn't Rios Gremory, and Issei knows this, not because of her brand new appearance, which makes her look like that girl from Became Georgia Kill's older sister. What was that woman's name again? She had the ability to manipulate ice, and used it to kill everyone she came across, mainly using it to form sharp objects. As Death. Was that her name? Was around 99.9% sure that was her name. Who knows? But either way, he can tell that he was also different by the aura she was giving off, the same that he had felt while making his way toward the school. The all too familiar presence that he felt, the presence of an old friend from the days against the God of the Bible, the one that he thought was gone forever, sealed away for all of eternity. But it looks like he was wrong in the end. Issei. It has been a while. How have you been? Ghidorah. Third person, POV. Fate, hope, future, past, and present. I have grown tired of hearing such things. People say that you cannot change your destiny, that your life is sealed no matter what you do. Such things have no effect on me. I will never be erased from the past, present, or future. Fate and destiny have no effect on me. Logic is non-existent, and I will arise as the ultimate life form. The Bermuda Triangle. Also known as the Devil's Triangle, it was one of, if not the most mysterious places in the world, located in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean. The Bermuda Triangle has an urban legend where a number of ships and aircraft have been said to disappear under mysterious circumstances. No one knows why this happens. A few people believe that it is mostly due to sharp rocks, raging waves, or crazy weather patterns. While this does sound scientific and is most likely the correct answer, there are some who believe otherwise. Some people believe that the disappearances are due to giant sea monsters that inhabit the sea. Well, this sounds ridiculous. In a way it is and it isn't. After all, humanity still hasn't explored much of the ocean in the last couple of years, so there is a chance that the disappearances are due to giant monsters. Maybe one day in the future, when technology is more advanced than it currently was, humanity will explore the place and maybe discover life within the darkness of the sea. Lost treasure, since the age of pirates, could be found, or maybe even something from out of this world is down there. No one knows, it could be possible. Plus, the supernatural does exist. They have been living among the people for many years now. So the changes of giant monsters living within the Bermuda Triangle have increased by 10%. But that just leaves the question. What does the supernatural think about the Devil's Triangle? Well, not many have actually gone to the Bermuda Triangle since the Great War between the three factions. They have been trying to have peace between heaven and hell for the past centuries, but there are still those who want war and conflict. But back on topic, A few supernatural beings did decide to come to the Devil's Triangle, thinking that they could discover weapons or treasures that would make them stronger and richer than even the dragon gods. However, just like all the ships and aircraft that enter the Dark Sea, they too disappear without a single trace. Where did they go? Are they alive? Are they dead? Will they one day come back? No one truly knows. Any travel to the Bermuda Triangle was forbidden after the first supernatural beings that went there disappeared. This is reasonable since any leader of a supernatural race wouldn't want more of their people going missing, especially since the Dark Sea was nothing more than a dead zone for anyone who entered. However, there is something about the place that no one knows about. It held a secret that was lost to time itself. The Bermuda Triangle was in fact home to giant sea monsters, but they originally didn't belong there. They in fact used to swim the deepest part of the ocean, living in complete darkness ever since the ancient days of the universe. They were many and they fed on either smaller life forms or each other, a cycle that has been going on for centuries since the God of the Bible used his power to create the heavens and the earth. But before the Great War came, the God of the Bible sealed away a vicious monster that was on part with the two dragon gods, a beast of the apocalypse, a creature of darkness and death. It was a tough battle, but he managed to defeat it and seal it away in the Devil Triangle and brought the most vicious sea monsters to guard it. Yes, indeed, the Dark Sea was in fact a prison to this monster, and has been for many years now. The God of the Bible feared that one day that someone or something would try to release the monster, which is why he placed the sea monsters as guards. They were the only ones that could possibly guard the prison. To this day, the sea creatures continue to obey the orders given to them by the God of the Bible. They had to prevent any and all from trying to release the monster sealed within the prison. Beast 666, also known as Perhixa. The hallways of the prison within the Bermuda Triangle were strange to say. They gave off an unsettling feeling which would make anyone feel like they were currently walking through either a barren wasteland or the Valley of Death. In fact, it almost gave the same feeling that Issei felt a long time ago before he went through his metamorphosis. The feeling that he was falling into the abyss. Cold, dark, silent, emptiness. No one could possibly wander those halls, not with that feeling always on their shoulders. If one even tried to, they would definitely go insane and end up killing themselves to be free from that unsettling feeling. However, there was someone wandering the halls of the prison, and it was a very powerful being. The person sighed as they walked, the sound of their footsteps echoing throughout the prison that he or she wandered through. This better be important then again. It's not like I have anything else better to do. Stepping into the light, the person was revealed to be a tall, handsome young man who appeared to be in his early 20s. He had a well-built body that could put most bodybuilders to shame. His hair was long and black in color, while his eyes, on the other hand, shined a brilliant golden color. Finally, I'm here. The figure found himself standing in front of a massive wooden door, engraved with several magical seals that are meant to prevent anyone from entering. However, the seals on the door mattered little to the person since the power coming from them was only as strong as an ultimate class devil, which was beneath his level of power. I'm here, open the door, old man. Just then, the massive wooden door slowly began to open up. When it did, the person was greeted by a bright light of holy energy. The person grumbled in annoyance, as he used his hand to block the light from shining in his eyes. Do you have to do this every time you call me? The black-haired man heard a chuckle of amusement as the holy light began to die down, which allowed the person to finally lower his hand. As the light fully vanished from the open door, someone began walking out. The man saw that the person before him had a very unique appearance to say the least, in a way to say that he was no human at all. For starters, they were slightly taller than the black-haired man. Most of their face was covered by a white hat, and they wore an outfit that just screamed royalty. But the most defining feature that the person had were the 4 eyes that floated next to his head, 2 on either side. You certainly know how to be a stick in the mud, Astrid. The man named Astrid crossed his arms with a bored expression on his face. Astrid. Well, you just called me out of nowhere. Elohim. Elohim, Yahweh. God. The Creator. The Lord. The Father of all creation, the big man himself. The one who was present during the Great War against the devils and the fallen angels. a being who had to battle against several monsters such as the Beast of the Apocalypse, the God of the Void, and the Ultimate Life Form. After the two heavenly dragons were sealed into sacred gears, Elohim felt like he should go into hiding for a little bit because he feared that if he stayed within heaven, it would only cause more conflict in the supernatural world. The Great War caused much destruction within the human world, killing so many unfortunate humans that got caught in the crossfire. He didn't know why he even went to battle against hell. Maybe it was because he was angry or saddened that one of his own children had fallen and become the king of hell. Lucifer Morningstar was always Elohim's favorite angel. He brought a smile to the old man's face whenever he did, but after his fall, Elohim was filled with so many emotions at the time. He wasn't sure what to make of what had occurred at the time. Despite all that, Lucifer was still his son, and he loved him like the father he was. He could never hate his son. What kind of father would do that? Elohim. Yeah, sorry for the sudden call. But this is very important. Astrid raised an eyebrow. Astrid. Oh, really? Elohim nodded his head. Many are probably wondering how, and why is there a mortal talking to the Almighty God? Well, the truth was that Astaroth is no mortal like a human. He was a supernatural being, one of the strongest that exist within the Draconic Deus universe. It was Astaroth, the time demon. Now, manipulating time is a very huge feat since not many have the power to do something like that. Hell, not even most gods have the power over time. There are only a few beings within the universe that have such a power, such as Kronos or Kronos as some call him. He is known as the god of time and the father of Greek gods like Poseidon, Hades, and Zeus. However, he is currently not around anymore because he got chopped into several pieces and thrown into a pit that he won't be able to escape from. Astrid has full control over time itself, like something out of an anime or a comic book. Not only can he use his power to go forward and back in time, he can also freeze it to an absolute halt, and even use his power to see far into the future. This has to be very important. Tell me more. Elohim. Follow me. Elohim turned and began to walk into the room he just came out from. The time demon shrugged his shoulders, and followed the father of creation into the dark room. He was sure that he wasn't gonna get raped. Well, even if that was the case, he can simply stop time. Astaroth followed closely until they arrived in a room. In the center of the room was a pedestal that had a dark purple orb in the center of it. The orb gave off a malicious and dark aura that seemed to be affecting the area around it. Last time Astaroth was in the room, the pedestal was stone, but now it has changed to being pure black. Astaroth. Wow, I can see that Trahixa is still in a bad mood. Below him. Yeah, that's the problem. This confused Astaroth as the time devil looked at the creator with a raised eyebrow. What was wrong? The beast of the apocalypse was sealed away. All they had to do was make sure that no one tried to free the damn monster. Astaroth. And what's wrong with that? Below him. I can feel with seal growing weaker by the day. It will only be a matter of time, Bifo. Astrid. Before Trahixa is freed from the seal. Below him nodded his head. Below him. Yeah, but that is not all. I feel the presence, one that I know all too well. This gained Asterisk attention. He wondered who Elohim was sensing. The time demon didn't have the same sensing ability as the father of creation, but it was still good. If he had to theorize who the person was, maybe it was his son, Lucifer Morningstar. Personally, he doesn't feel like that is the case. Astrid remembers that the former archangel died during the Great War between heaven and hell. Astrid. A presence. Belohem nodded his head. Belohem. Yeah, a certain someone who battled against me after I fought the god of the void. The demon of time's eyes widened as fear began to fill his entire body. He knew who God was talking about. There was no way that he could forget about that monster. He can recall the entire battle nearly perfectly. The creature the creator faced was one of unknown origins. A monster, a beast, a titan of terror if you would. No one knew where it came from. What they do know is that the creature was extremely powerful. It was all it knew what it was doing. It took pleasure in causing harm to others that it killed. Astaroth. What do we do? There's no way we can survive against that monster. Elohim sighed. Elohim. I know. I'm worried too. To hear not only Astaroth, the time demon and God, the father of creation itself, be afraid of a single monster, must prove the fact that it was indeed very powerful. God already knew that it was powerful since he faced it after battling against the god of the void. If he didn't use his full power against it, not only would the entire world have been destroyed by that titan of terror, but all of creation would have been destroyed. Below him. Astaroth. Can't you use your power to see into the future? Maybe you can discover its weakness. Sighed as he scratched the back of his head. He could try and give it a shot. Sure, he had mastery over time and could see the future, which gave him information that some could only dream of. But they were talking about this monster. A monster who appeared out of nowhere, a creature who only had one sole purpose, death. Astaroth, I can try. Below him. See what you can do. The time demon dead panda god of the Bible. Astaroth, did you really just say that right now of all times? The father of creation chuckled. Elohim? Yep. Astaroth shook his head as he slowly closed his eyes. A purple aura started to cover his body as God waited for the results. Some would think that it was very weird that Elohim, one of the most powerful beings in the entire universe, was having a casual talk with a demon of all people. Well, Elohim thinks of Astaroth as a good friend. Sure, they were from two different sides, one from heaven, which was known as the highest place, and the other from hell, also known as the lowest place. But God's own son was the ruler of hell. He never had any hatred for his own son because he knew that it was his own fault. Elohim blames himself for what happened to his son. If only he were a better father, maybe things would have turned out differently than they were. Elohim. Son. I'm so sorry for all the pain you had to endure over the centuries, all the suffering you had to take. And what did I do? Nothing. Was still using his powers to see into the future. There had to be some kind of weakness he could discover about that monster. If he doesn't find anything, then Trihixa won't be the only threat that the world will have to deal with. There will be the even worse one. As he continued to use his powers, he gritted his teeth as he could see anything so far. Sure, there was some information about the future that would be useful, but nothing in relation to the Titan of Terror that God faced so long ago. The demon of time continued to try his best. He had to do this. But as he was, something soon happened, something that should be completely impossible. He saw darkness. Pitch black, null. Nothing. And from that coming came the very creature that he feared, the monster who only desired to bring nothing but death and destruction upon all he encountered. Nice try, Astaroth. But I'm coming for you and Elohim. Astaroth's eyes widened in terror as he fell onto the cold, wet stony ground beneath him. Elohim, who had finally stopped hating himself for what happened to his son, was surprised by what he had seen and quickly ran over to his comrade and checked to see if he was all right. Elohim? Astrid, what happened? What did you see? Astrid panted heavily. Sweat began to roll down his face as his expression was filled with nothing but fear. Astrid. Elohim? He turned to the father of creation, letting him see the fear in the demon's eyes. Astrid, he knows what I was doing. He's coming for us. Out of the Bible was left absolutely speechless from what he had just heard. That monster knew that Astrid was trying to see into the future. How is that possible? How can he know when someone is looking forward in time? He never paused such ability the time God faced him. Has he gotten stronger? Has he obtained the power over time? Did he evolve? Below him had so many questions flowing through his mind, but he knew he couldn't answer them all. Him, the biblical God, the father of creation, one of the strongest beings in the entire universe, was unable to answer some simple questions. Below him, I guess our earth-shattering battle will begin once again. Destoroyah. Meanwhile with Issei, both Issei and Rias were currently standing off with each other. One's eyes glowing purple while the other started to glow a golden color. Koneko, Sona and Tsubaki could feel the sheer aura coming from the two, and it was truly something else. They had never felt anything like it before. This was mainly shocking for Sona since Rias had never let out such a powerful aura before. She would know since she basically grew up with her. But that wasn't the only shocking feature that Sona had noticed. She was sure that she wasn't the only one that noticed the red-haired girl's new appearance. Sona. What the hell happened to Rias? Not only has her appearance changed, so has her power. Rias smirked. Rias? Been a while, hasn't it, Destoroyah? Issei growled. Issei? Indeed. Ghidorah. Hearing those two names gained the trio of girls' attention, wondering what were the two talking about. Destoroyah? Ghidorah? What did that mean? Were those nicknames or something? They have never heard of such things before, and Sona was the most confused about the situation before her. Issei started to crack his neck as well as his knuckles. A faint glow of purple was able to be seen through the gaps in his teeth. The brown-haired boy was ready to battle, not caring if anyone saw them since he could easily kill them all in a second. Issei. So you won a rumble? Rias simply giggled and shook her head at the latter. This caught his attention as he wondered what she was planning. Rias. I don't think it's the right time to battle, that will come later on. Issei. Oh. You scared of facing me again? Rias. Scared. Issei watched as Rias started giggling. For some reason, Issei felt like tearing her spine from her fucking body when he heard that laugh. Rias. No, I'm not scared. In fact, Rias, I'm very prepared. But that will have to wait until I'm done with the members of the church. Issei simply snorted as the purple glow from his mouth and eyes faded away. He turned and walked up to Koneko. Issei. Let's go. Koneko. Oh, okay. With that, the two began to walk off together. As they were, Koneko gazed up at the brown-haired boy, her instincts telling her to flee from the monster before her. But she will not run from Issei. She was not a monster, and she knows that no matter what anyone says or what he does, Koneko will love him and protect him as he will protect her. If she has to go against her own king for Issei's sake, that is something she is willing to do. Speaking of which, Rias crossed her arms as she watched the two enter the school building. A smile grew on her face as her eyes continued to glow with a golden aura. Things were going exactly as she planned. Sona. Rias. Rias. The crimson red-haired girl looked at her childhood best friend. Rias? Yes, Sona? Sona? What has happened to you? Rias simply giggled as she walked up to her friend, cupping her chin and making the black-haired devil girl stare into her golden eyes. Rias, I have evolved. Time skip brought to you by Rick, C-137 vs. Black Hat. Ring ring. The bell rang, signaling the end of class and the start of lunchtime. Both Issei and Koneko were currently making their way to a little spot that the white-haired devil girl likes to eat at. It wasn't anything special since there weren't many secluded areas within Ko Academy. But they make do with what they can work with as they walked, however. Issei was deep in thought about something, but it wasn't anything important to worry about. It certainly didn't have anything to do with Rios Ghidorah, even though he was taken aback when he discovered that his old friend decided to make a deal with a mortal of all things. And again, he could really blame him since the last time he saw the god of the void, he was humiliated by a lesser being, plus the brown-haired boy wanted to kill him since he was bored. Could he really say that he did it? Technically it was his past self that did it, but he has all his original memories. But he was residing within a new body with new memories and abilities. Issei didn't think much about it since it mattered little if he was in a new body or his old body. All that matters is what is about to occur in the next day or so. You don't need to be psychic or have the power to see into the future to know that some sort of battle will take place. All that did matter was if his Sei was gonna participate in the battle or not, even though he wasn't sure himself. Maybe if he feels like it. If he was in the mood. Koneko and Issei arrived at their destination and sat down. They each took out a Japanese version of a lunchbox and began to eat the food that was inside. Issei. This is nice. Koneko nodded her head as she ate her food. The area they were in was under a small tree, which wasn't really the best spot since there were still people around. A spring started among the other students who decided to watch the two. Issei could hear what they were saying as if they were basically yelling at them in his ear. Unfortunately, another perk of his was enhanced hearing, which is its good and bad. Girl 1, look at that disgusting perv. Girl 2, he must have blackmailed her. Girl 3, just die. Boy 1, hide you bastard. Boy 2. First Rias, then Akeno, then Asia, and now Koneko. Boy 3. How dare he hang out with the mascot? Issei simply rolled his eyes in annoyance. He grew tired of those annoying humans. If he could, he would instantly erase them all from existence. But he can't, or else things will turn out bad for Koneko. But that didn't mean that he couldn't kill them, just not in the daytime. The brown-haired boy silently chuckled to himself as he soon remembered something. Growing a smirk, he looked at Koneko, who finished eating her lunch. Issei? Hey, Koneko. Koneko? Issei? You know what would make all this even better? Koneko looked at Issei and tilted her head, wondering what he was about to say to her. Issei smirked as he cupped her chin with his fingers and made her look up at him. The white-haired devil girl's face went bright red from how close her face was to Issei's. Issei. You becoming my girl. When she heard those words, Koneko's face went as red as Ria's hair and steam started to come out of her ears. Koneko. What? Issei chuckled. Issei. You heard me. Become my fiancé and I will move heaven and hell to grant your every desire. Koneko. Really, you will do that for me? Issei nodded his head. Issei. Indeed I will. I've said it so many times before. Koneko, you are mine. You belong to me and no one else. Not even that red-haired bitch will be able to do anything while I exist, and the three factions are too afraid to F. Koneko cut Issei off by grabbing his shirt and kissing the brown-haired boy on the lips, causing the latter and the surrounding students' eyes to widen in complete surprise. Girl 1. What the hell? Girl 2. Did I just see that? Girl 3. I saw it too. Koneko kissed Haidu. She kissed the perv. Girl 4, not gonna lie. That is hot. Boy 1, what the fuck? Boy 2, no. My dream woman. Boy 3, shut the fuck up, Jake. Lissy's shock soon vanished as he wrapped his arms around the devil girl's waist. They kissed for a solid minute or two before they separated from each other. Koneko's face was bright red while Issei only had a grin of satisfaction on his face. He knew that this would happen. Even though it appeared he was shocked, in reality, he wasn't really. The latter knew that Koneko would not resist him. Issei, looks like it's official. Koneko nodded her head. Koneko? Yeah. Senpai. Issei simply chuckled. He could feel the hateful glares from the other students. But he didn't care about those since he has what he wanted now. For all he cared, those hateful glances can be shoved up those idiots' asses. Time skip brought to you by Black Clover Movie. It was the end of the school hour and Issei, Koneko, and Asia made their way toward the old school building. Issei could feel his old friend's aura coming from the building, but paid no mind to it since they both know when the time is right to strike at each other. Plus Issei has to remember that this was Rios that had Ghidorah's powers. While he hates the red-haired bitch, he knows that she was a very intelligent opponent. Facing her in pure combat would be very easy, but when it comes to strategies, she has slight advantages since in his past life, Issei's way of fighting was very simple-minded and easily flawed. The trio soon arrived at the building and entered inside when they did instead of being greeted by a dusty and old entrance. The floor was in fact very clean and shiny. Asia. Wow, look how shiny the floor is. Issei. Yeah, the shine is pretty cool. Koneko nodded her head. Just then, Issei's eye caught something that made him smirk. Using the reflection of the shiny floor, he could see up Koneko's skirt and see her panties. The brown-haired boy didn't care about Asia's since why would he? The latter already had a fiancé, so there is no reason to do the dream that his mortal self wanted to do. Issei, Koneko soon noticed what Issei was doing and punched his shoulder, blushing slightly. The attack didn't harm the latter, but it did make him crack up a little since he found it adorable to tease Koneko. Yeah. Something was wrong with him. I'm skipped brought to you by me trying to fight the outer gods. Issei and Koneko were making their way to Issei's house. The duo was holding each other's hands as they walked. The devil girl had a smile on her face, and this nearly caused one to grow on Issei's as well. You know, it was funny really. In the past he was known by many names and titles. Monster, Beast, Titan of Terror, specter of darkness, idea of cataclysm, ultimate life form, destroyer. And yet, he was acting more like a human, a creature that had feelings and emotions. Issei didn't know how to feel. One thing was for certain. He despised it. It was disgusting. Did anyone really think he generally cared for Koneko like a person? No. He has stated it many times before. Koneko belongs to him. You can't have a person belong to another person unless you're talking about either marriage or adoption. But none of that was the case here. Issei only saw Koneko as an object for him to use whenever he desired. Plus, who was gonna stop him? He hasn't even used much of his strength, or his forms, and the balls of all the supernatural rest in the palm of his hands. Issei. I'd better not fall because of those disgusting emotions. As the two drew closer to Issei's house, Koneko soon stopped dead in her tracks as the devil girl picked up a strange and familiar scent coming from the house. The scent belonged to those two cloaked figures they saw at Ko Academy today. They were inside Issei's home. Issei. What's wrong? Koneko. Those two church members are inside your home. Issei. Oh. Really? Koneko nodded her head. Koneko? Your parents might be in danger. Issei snorted as they approached the house, walking up to the front door and grabbing the doorknob. The brown-haired boy could feel two powerful holy energies from within, but he can also sense that they were fake as well. As soon as he and Koneko walked inside, they heard the sound of Issei's parents laughing and talking from someone. The source of the noise was coming from the living room. Koneko wondered if she should call Rias and the others for backup, but glancing at her fiancé, she saw that he wasn't worried at all. He must be either cocky or determined that whoever was with his parents won't harm them. Walking toward the source, the two soon saw Mickey and Gora Hades sitting on one of the couches. Sitting across from them were the same cloaked figures from earlier. However, this time their hoods were down, which allowed Koneko and Issei to finally see what they looked like. Issei's mother soon noticed the two and smiled. Mickey, Issei, welcome home, and I see you brought Koneko. The brown-haired boy nodded his head as he looked at the two figures. The chestnut-haired girl smiled and waved at him. Issei. It's good to see you again. It's been a while, hasn't it? Issei raised an eyebrow. Issei. And you are? The girl smiled and pointed at herself. Irina? Oh, come on, how can you forget this face? It's me, Irina Shudu. Issei? Excuse me, what? Koneko looked at Issei confused. Koneko? Who? He sighed and looked at the devil girl. Issei? Irina was a childhood best friend of mine, but she had to move away when I was around, I think 7 if I'm not mistaken, but she looks totally different. Mickey? I know, she looks so different. I mean, you could have mistaken her for a boy if you didn't know better. Issei deadpanned at his mother. Issei. I did think she was a boy. Irina. He's got a point. I mean, I really did act like one back then. The Titan of Terror mentally sighed in annoyance. This was exactly what he needed. More annoyances that were gonna ruin his plans for the future. Doesn't matter, if Irene or her comrade try and get in his way, then their skull will make good footballs. Issei has been wanting to get into sports even before the betrayal and going through his metamorphosis. Time skip brought to you by Godzilla Earth theme song Live and Die. It was a new day within the town of Kwa. Today was the day of the meeting between the two church members and Rias Gremory. Issei was gonna be there with Koneko for only one reason. He had wanted to see how the two sides were gonna foolishly embarrass themselves. Currently, everyone except for Kiba was in the clubroom. Issei was a little confused. Where the hell was Kiba? The blonde was a knight of Rias Gremory, and it wasn't like him to just miss out of something as important as this. Something wasn't adding up, but there wasn't really any time to ask questions since the meeting had just begun. Zenobia, thank you for agreeing to speak with us. My name is Zenobia. Irina. And I'm Irina sure do. Ria smiled at the two girls, her expression sending a shiver down everyone's but Issei's spine. The latter wasn't fazed by this because, unlike the others who had no idea why Rias got a new appearance, Issei on the other hand did know. Rias? It's a surprise that followers from God want to speak to a devil. Irina. It does seem random. Here's the thing. The church has 6 swords that we can account for. 3 are still with the church, and the other 3 were stolen by fallen angels. This shocked everyone. Rias didn't have much of a reaction like the others in her peerage. But she was surprised that something like this has happened. Looks like she will need to make a change of plans. Zenobia showed the object that was wrapped up in cloth. Zenobia. These are the ones that are left. They were made from Excalibur. This one is mine, the sword of destruction. Irina then reveals some sort of white cloth around her arm. Irina. And then there's the one I have here. It's known as the Holy Sword of Mimicry. 'Tis an Excalibur mimic. Issei rolled his eyes. Issei. Could have fooled me. Rias. Well, what is it you like for us to do for you today? Zenobia. Stay completely out of it. This is between the church and the fallen ones. We don't need you to interfere. Rias. That sounds like an accusation. So you think we will side with them and stop you from obtaining those swords? Zenobia. We know the devils are weak against holy swords. Wouldn't make sense to support the fallen angels. Rias slowly started to glare at Zenobia, her eyes glowing gold. Zenobia. If you do, then we have no choice but to annihilate you even though you are the great devil king's sister. Rios, if you have figured me out, then let me share something with you. There's no way that I would think about joining the fallen angels. I will never do anything to betray my clan or my older brother. Zenobia. It's enough for me to hear that. I was told in headquarters just in case. I thought the little sister of Lucifer would be a fool, but looks like I was in the wrong. There he is. Good to know. Then I hope that you understand that we will not support you either. Zenobia. Of course. I trust that we will prevail if you promise not to interfere with this ordeal. Rias. You have my word. Both Irina and Zenobia stood up. Zenobia. It's time for us to go. Rias. Would you like some tea before you go? Zenobia. No thanks. We need to finish our mission. The fallen ones are still out there with those swords. Issei was a little disappointed. He was fully expecting a fight to break out between the two. But it looks like the brown-haired boy was wrong. Talk about a shame. However, Zenobia soon stopped and looked at Asia. Zenobia? I thought I recognized you. Aren't you Asia Argento? Asia? Why, yes. Zenobia? It makes sense that I'd run into a witch in a place like this. Irina gasped. Irina. Oh my goodness, it is you. You're the former saint who became a witch. I had heard you were banished because you had the power to heal fallen angels and devils, and at one time you actually used it. You must be pretty strong. I didn't know you actually become a devil yourself. Asia started looking down really nervous. Rias noticed the reaction from the blonde. Asia, well. I guess so. Rias. Asia, are you okay? Zenobia? No. She isn't. She went from being a saint to being a devil. That's about as far one can fall. A small smirk grew on Issei's face, one of his eyes glowing a menacing purple color, as he was not excited. This was exactly what he had hoped would happen earlier. Looks like he got what he wished for. Talk about an early Christmas present. Zenobia. Do you still believe in our god Asia? Irina, don't be silly. She's a devil, she's over us. Zenobia. No, that doesn't always mean what you think it does. There are those whose hearts continue to stay loyal amongst their own betrayal. She seems like she may be one of them. Irina. Really? Irina looked at the blonde-haired devil girl. Irina, is that true, Asia? Do you still believe in God? I mean, I know you're like a devil, but do you? Asia? Yes, I've never been able to let go. I've believed in God this whole time. Zenobia. Then you should allow us to. This is perfect. I'll take you both on. Everyone turned their heads and saw Kiba leaning against the wall. Issei was surprised by this since he didn't hear the blonde knight enter the door. Zenobia. And you are, Kiba? Your superior. Pleasure to meet you. Time skip brought to you by Hawks eating fried chicken. Outside the old school building, Rias and her peerage were staring at a battle between Ace and Kiba versus Zenobia and Irina. Now some may be wondering why the hell was Ace facing off against them for. They didn't do anything to him, In fact, they didn't really speak with the brown-haired boy. Simple, the author is a lazy motherfucker who can't think of any other ideas. Like seriously, he is so unoriginal that it is almost very sad to see him try. Rias had her arms crossed as she knew how this will turn out. She wasn't worried about Issei, since she knew that he could handle himself. Kiba, on the other hand, not so much though. He was going up against a powerful holy sword, a piece of the legendary Excalibur at that. Any devil would know that facing a user of that sword is basically your way of saying that you don't want to live anymore, but there's no way that Kiba would listen. He's filled with too much rage. Zenobia? Alright, let's begin. Both she and Irina removed their clothes to reveal their outfits, which were black leather suits. The sight of these outfits nearly made Issei want to facepalm himself. If Issei was his perverted self, then he would be drooling like a waterfall right now. How could he not with the way that the two girls were dressed? He was so glad that part of him was dead now, but he also thought of the benefits that wearing such an outfit has. They are using 2 fragments of Excalibur, 2 holy swords, and one has to be agile while in battle. So what they're wearing must be gonna assisting them with their speed. Akeno looked at Rias with a worried expression. Akeno, are you sure it is alright to fight the people of the church without permission? Rias giggled as she smiled at Akeno. Rias. It's just an informal bout, not an actual official battle. Irina, if the higher-ups found out, then we're all in trouble. Irina took the white cloth off her arm and it transformed into a katana. Zenobia unwrapped her sword and prepared for the fight. Issei wasn't fazed by the 2 holy swords' presence since he knew that they were nothing more than fakes, empty shells compared to the real deal. Zenobia, we'll do our best not to kill you. DBA stared at the blue-haired girl as he started to laugh, confusing Zenobia. Zenobia. What's so funny? Tiba? It's because the one thing I want to destroy has appeared willingly before my eyes. At that moment multiple swords erupted from the ground. Zenobia was surprised at first, but she soon remembers what this power was called. Zenobia. Sword birth. Now I remember, you are the sole survivor of the Holy Sword Project. Irina. Issei, is it totally you? Issei raised an eyebrow. Issei? Yes. Irina? I feel like fate is making fun of me. The best friend I grew up with is with the devils. Why is this happening? Issei? Irina, my one goal is to wield a holy sword, move far away and help those around me. God must be testing my will to overcome this dramatic heartbreak. If I prove I'm strong enough, then I can be much closer to him. Issei. I'm pretty sure none of this has anything to do with you, but whatever. Irina, I'm really sorry, Issei. This hurts me much more than it hurts you. But your sins will suffer the wrath of my Excalibur. She charged toward Issei, who just remained where he was. He watched as she jumped into the air with the sword above her head. Irina. Amen. Asia. Issei, watch out. The brown-haired boy simply stepped to the right, causing Irina to miss him and strike the ground. Issei. And I thought this was a friendly fight. None of that was friendly. Irina. Oh, to return to my hometown only to fight one of my oldest friends. Fate can be so cruel. Issei's sweat dropped. Why the hell was she being so dramatic about? Like what the hell, she was never this dramatic when they both were kids, even when Issei thought that she was a boy. Rias? If I were you, I'd dodge her blows, Destoroyah. The latter glared at the crimson-haired girl, causing everyone but her to have a shiver sent down their spines. I don't need to be told what to do, especially by you. Ghidorah. Zenobia. I have to say, you devils have a lot of sacred creatures, sword birth, and Asia's twilight healing. I have another power. One of the grudges from my fallen comrades. With this power I will destroy all of Excalibur. He charged towards Anovaya, and the two clashed their swords against one another, the blonde-haired boy glaring at the girl before him. Kiba. Along with them, I will annihilate their wielders. The two clashed blow to blow, and everyone except for Rias and Issei was worried about Kiba's safety. Akeno. Just being touched by a holy sword is a huge disadvantage. Rias. Kiba's speed can manage her, Akeno. And I say. Rias giggled. Rias. I'm not worried about him, just look at him. They all looked at Issei, seeing him easily dodge the chestnut girl's swings. In fact, Irina looked like she was getting frustrated that she hasn't landed a single blow on the boy. Irina, you can't be this strong. Issei sighed, his eyes slowly glowing purple. Issei, I grow tired of this. Suddenly, everyone turned and watched Issei fire a purple beam from his mouth. Irina managed to jump out of the way, but the force of the attack started destroying everything in its path. Many eyes widened as they watched the grass, the leaves, the trees, and even the dirt began to dissolve from being touched by the purple beam. Fear started to fill the two church members. They had never seen such a powerful attack before, and they are 100% sure they don't want to know what will happen if they were struck by the beam. Zenobia wasn't sure if anything would survive it if it was able to dissolve things such as the dirty. What was the limit? Was there even one? Zenobia, we have to be careful of him. Kiba. Not keeping focused on your enemy is a way you die. The blue-haired girl quickly looked back at Kiba and the two clashed once again. Both glared at each other as Kiba leaped backward and stabbed both his swords into the ground. Zenobia narrowed her eyes as she watched him pick up two new ones, a red one and a silver one. Kiba, it's time for you to burn and freeze. The red sword erupted in flames, while the silver one got surrounded by a small blizzard twister. He charged toward the girl and attempted to slash at her again. Zenobia. How naive. With one powerful swing, Zenobia destroyed both of Kiba's swords in an instant. This shocked the blonde as he watched the girl raise her sword above her and stab the ground, causing a small explosion that sent dust everywhere. All that could be seen through the dust were the purple and golden glow coming from Issei and Ria's eyes. When the dust cleared, everyone saw a big crater with Zenobia in the center of it. Zenobia, the holy sword of destruction. Believe me, this sword's name is not just for show. Kiba. Even split into 7, they're still that strong. Then there's going to be a lot of carnage when I destroy them all. Actually, this is the end. Kiba quickly looked behind him and saw Issei glaring at him, one of his eyes burning with a purple aura. Before the latter could say anything to his comrade, he was struck in the face by Issei and knocked out with a single blow. Issei sighed. Issei. Should have killed him. Zenobia looked down at the unconscious Kiba. Zenobia. Your only weapons are a few swords and a little speed. Not only do you lack the strength, but you are so blinded by rage that you failed to notice an enemy approaching you from behind. Both Zenobia and Irina picked up their cloaks and put them back on. As they were starting to walk away, the blue-haired girl looked at Rias. Zenobia. Remember what we talked about, Lady Gremory? Rias. Just out of my curiosity. The two girls looked at the crimson-haired devil girl. Rias. If you don't mind telling which fallen angel stole the 3 Excaliburs. Zenobia. Yes, we know who did it. The leader of the Grigori. His name is Kokabiel. This gained shocked expressions from Rias and her peerage. Who are the Grigori? The Akeno. A fallen angel faction. Rias. The two of you are after a leader class. Are you planning to die? Zenobia. We do what we must to keep the fallen angels from the holy swords. I'm willing to trade my life to annihilate them. Irina. We understand the anger, there was already one casualty. One of the priests that should meet us was killed. Issei. I have a feeling I know who did it, a certain psychopath named Fried. Rias. That stray priest did it. Zenobia. Interesting, it was a stray priest. Now we know who we are up against. I appreciate the information, but don't get involved in our affair. She then turned and began to walk away. Zenobia? We'll take our leave. Irina? Hold on a second, Zenobia. Irina looked at Issei, who had his arms crossed. Standing next to him was Koneko, as the latter's eyes had reverted back to their usual color. Irina? It's good to see you again, I see. I'm glad you're still the same. Somewhat. But that, she turned and began to catch up with her partner. Koneko? You okay? Issei simply nodded. Rias? Where are you going, Kiba? This gained everyone's attention as they looked over. Issei was kinda surprised to see Kiba back up after he knocked him out. Then again, he didn't want to kill him. Yet he has a feeling that the blonde-haired boy is gonna play a major part in the chess game that was laid out before them all. Issei and Rias were the kinds commanding this game. The battle that was lost ages ago shall be reignited once again. The battle between the ultimate life form and the god of the void. Rias, you do realize that I will not permit you to leave me. You are a knight of the House of Gremory. Kiba? I know, President, and I'm sorry. But that, Kiba began to walk off from the ground. Rias sighed and shook her head. Why did her servants have to be so annoying to deal with? I'm Skip, brought to you by me being too lazy to make a video. It was a new day and things are going well. Issei and Koneko were at the same stop when he asked her to be his fiancée. As the white-haired girl ate, Issei questioned if he bought her a ring or not, since he doesn't really have emotional feelings for her, like he said before he saw her as his property. Issei? Should I or should I not? As he was thinking, he noticed that Koneko seemed a little down. Issei? What's wrong, kitty? Hideko? Nothing. Issei? You miss him, don't you? Hideko nodded her head. It was pretty obvious that she missed the blonde-haired knight, since before he came into the supernatural, they were basically best friends, since Kiba was the whole gentleman type of guy. Issei sighed. Issei? I'm sure he will be alright. Koneko, you sure? Issei nodded his head. He may not like Kiba or anyone at all. But that damn idiot was way too stubborn to just roll over and die. He wants revenge for what happened in his past. It was almost funny to think about it. While Lissy hasn't heard the entire story, he doesn't really need to, since he only needs small parts to know the full story. His best guess is that Kiba was an orphan that was taken in by the church and chosen to be a part of this Holy Sword project. He guessed that project failed and whoever was in charge decided to kill off the failures. Now that he's thinking about it, this sounds like something the stereotypical Asian and North Korean would do. Now that sounds racist. I think I just said something racist. Not sure. Time skip. A few more days have passed since the friendly fight between Ria's peerage and the members of the church. Currently, Issei and Koneko were at the Occult Research Club. The brown-haired boy was sitting on one of the couches and his kitty was sitting on his lap, mainly on his crotch. Suddenly, the crimson-haired girl stood up from her chair as she sensed something. This gained everyone's attention as they looked at her. Akeno. What's wrong, Rias? I sensed my familiar calling me. Let's go. Rias prepared the teleportation circle to her familiar's location. Everyone got on and teleported away. When they arrived, they saw Rias' familiar in human form. They also saw Irina lying her head on Rias' familiar lap, her outfit almost destroyed as she was covered in bruises. Asia. Irina. Everyone rushed over to the chestnut-haired girl who slowly opened her eyes. Irina? I say. Issei. What happened to you? Where's your partner, Irina? I don't know. We got separated when he showed up. I couldn't defeat him, he was too strong. This got Issei's attention. Issei? Who is he? Irina then looked at everyone and slowly smiled. Irina? Please be careful. With that, she closed her eyes and fell unconscious. Asia. Irina. Suddenly, a blue light appeared from behind and from it came Sona, Tsubaki and Saji. Rias, thank you so much for coming, Sona. Sona nodded as she walked toward Irina. Sona. Of course, I came when I received your message. Asia. How is she, Sona? She's pretty hurt, but don't worry. I have the equipment at my house. She then looked at her queen. Sona, Tsubaki. Tsubaki. Understood. Tsubaki picked Irina up bridal style. She then created a teleportation circle and disappeared. Asia then looked at Rias. Asia? You think Zenobia is alright? Rias? Not sure. Suddenly, Rias and Issei sensed something, or rather someone close by. The crimson red-haired girl summoned a ball of destruction and threw it at a tree, causing it to be erased and revealing none other than Freed. Freed. You bitch. I spent 2 hours getting into the right position. He then looked over at Asia. Freed. Well, if it isn't Asia Argento. How does it feel to betray the church and give your soul to the devils? Asia began to shake in fear as Rias and Sona stood in front of the peerage. Issei stood back and just watched as things played out before him. Creed suddenly raised his hands up. Creed. Whoa. Whoa. I'm just a messenger. Someone wants to talk to you, Little Red. Rias? Oh? And who may I ask? Freed smirked. Freed. My boss. Freed looked up as the sky suddenly changed into purple and other various colors becoming distorted, and looking up everyone saw a man in the air. The man had long black hair and red eyes and pointy ears. Issei also noticed that this person possesses 5 pairs of black wings. Koneko. Fallen Angel, Akeno. He has 10 wings. He's a leader class. It's a pleasure to meet you, daughter of the House of Gremory. I am Kokabiel, Issei. So, that's Kokabiel. Rias. The pleasure is all mine, but please call me Rias. So you're the leader of the Fallen Ones. It's nice to meet a face with a name. The black-haired Fallen grew an evil smirk. Kokabiel. Your red hair reminds me of the Devil King and the facial expressions are similar. Just looking makes me throw up. Rias then put on a serious expression. Rias. So what are you doing here? Kokabiel. I like to do some damage while I'm here, starting with your school and then the rest of the town. Rias. Why attack our school? Kokabiel. If I do then, Circus will come to help his little sister. What do you think? Rias? If you do that, then it will be a war of devils, fallen angels, and angels all over again. This made Kokabiel laugh. Kokabiel, better after stealing the Excalibur fragments. I thought Michael will come after me. But he sent a weak exorcist and 2 holy swords. Rias? So you want to start another war? Kokabiel grew a dark smile. Kokabiel? That's right. After the first 3-way war, I was so bored there was nothing to do. Azazel and Shemisai were passive when the next one starts. Rias? You're a complete war maniac. The black-haired fallen angel laughed. Kokabiel. Obviously, what do you think I'm using devils this time? I have Urias Gremory, Lucifer's little sister, and Usona Citri, Leviathan's little sister. Rias sighed as she stared up at the fallen, her eyes glowing golden. Rias? Well, looks like I can use one of my new abilities, the Kokabiel. Rias smirked as an astral version of Ghidorah's head shot out from the Gremory girl's shoulder and fired a beam of golden electricity at the leader of the Grigori. The Kokabiel managed to evade the attack, but he had an amused grin on his face. Meanwhile, Sona and the others were shocked by what Rias had just done. Sona? Rias? What was that? Rias simply smiled. Rias? Don't worry about it, cutie. She quickly summoned another one and fired at a Kokabiel who once again evaded the beam. Kokabiel, I thought I recognized this power, the same one I sensed ages ago. You made a deal with the god of the void. Many eyes widened as they looked at Rias, shocked. Asia, G-God. Sona. God of the void. Akeno. Is that why Rias' appearance changed? Rias sighed. Rias. I was hoping to keep this a secret, but it looks like that has gone out the window. Kokabiel chuckled. Kokabiel, which means? He turned his attention to Issei, who stared at the leader of the Grigori, a smirk growing on the fallen's face as he also knew this feeling. The feeling of dread and death. Kokabiel. Which means that you are the ultimate life form. Koneko looked at Issei. Koneko. Senpai. Issei. So you figured it out, I wonder how. Not many know of my existence. Kokabiel simply chuckled. Kokabiel. Simple. I was there during your battle against the Father of Creation. The fallen angel can recall the battle between the 3 monsters almost perfectly. It was a fight that shook the entire planet to its core, nearly shattering the heavens themselves. Yahweh faced the golden terror of void to try and prevent him from devouring the planet, which was nearly impossible because Ghidorah wasn't a being with a physical body, and so he couldn't be touched most of the time. However, God of the Bible managed to overcome this problem and severely damaged the golden terror. But before he could finish the monster off, Destroyer came out of nowhere and ruined it all. No one on the planet knew he existed. They all believed that he was a myth, a legend, A made-up story that was meant to scare children into behaving. He was the true definition of a monster, a beast that fed on destruction. With his monstrous wings, only darkness existed. No life, no hope, no future. Nothing at all. Ghidorah believed that Destoroyah came to save his life, but the Golden Fool was foolish to believe that a monster of despair would come to actually save someone's life. No, Destoroyah came to kill both him and God because he had grown bored and sought out a form of entertainment. The Father of Creation had to be not only face the God of the Void, but the Titan of Terror as well. On that day, everyone in the universe witnessed the darkness of an eclipse and the raw power of the ultimate life form. The new era of the apocalypse. They say, "Oh, you watched my battle with the Father of Creation, Octavio." Indeed I did, Rias. I had a feeling that someone was watching the fight, but I never thought much about it. Just then Fried started to laugh like a psychopath. Fried. Isn't he awesome? I'm starting to get excited about war as well. I mean, look at the presents I got. He opened his jacket to reveal several holy swords. Koneko. Holy swords? Issei, all fragments of Excalibur. Free. The fun part is that every one of these swords are in hyper state ready to be used. He laughed as he revealed a certain white cloth around his left arm. Freed. And I got this one from the twin ponytailed girl. How was her scream? Bess? You stole her sword? What are you, 3, Kokabiel? Oh, don't act so surprised, Destoroyah. But what do you say, dear little sister of the Devil King? Nice say too for war, isn't? He summoned multiple light spears and began to rain them down upon everyone. Both Sona and Rias summoned their magic circles and began blocking the attacks. Issei remained where he was as some tried to hit him. However, when they made contact with his skin they just shattered upon impact. He didn't get why devils make such a fuss over some toothpicks. Seriously, there are more dangerous things in the universe. Like they were standing right next to two of them. Either way, after the little rain of light was over, they all looked back at Kokabiel and Freed. Only to see that they both were gone. Saji, where did he go? Koneko turned toward Kwa Academy. Koneko? They headed toward the academy. Issei chuckled in amusement. Issei? Wow, they really want to attack that school. Sona? No, they said they were gonna start at the school. Their target is the whole town, Akeno. That's true. Issei looked over at Rias, who was dusting herself off. Issei. So, Ghidorah, are you gonna handle this? Or do you need me to? The crimson-haired girl glared at the brown-haired boy. Rias? Shut the fuck up, Destoroyah, just go. Issei chuckled as a pair of wings sprouted from his back. They weren't the usual wings that a devil had. No, these were much bigger and more dragon-like in nature. Everyone was shocked, but their jaws soon dropped to the floor as they witnessed Issei take off into the air with insane speed, like something out of a superhero movie. Rias sighed in annoyance. She blamed herself for thinking that Kokabiel would just stand still when she attacked him. This wasn't some sort of anime or manga, this was real life. Of course, he was gonna dodge the attack. What annoyed her, even more, is that Issei, or rather Destoroyah of all beings, is the one that has to deal with the fallen angel. She has the power of the God of the Void, and she was doing nothing. Rias? Okay, fuck this. Everyone looked at Rias. Sona? Rias? What's wrong? Rias, there's no way, I'm letting Destoroyah have all the fun. Just then, a pair of golden dragon wings sprouted from Rias' back which shocked everyone. But just like Issei, they watched as she took off into the sky after the brown-haired boy. Many thoughts were running through the devil's minds right now. The main one was basically, what the fuck happened to Rias and Akeno? Not only have they both changed in appearance and personality, but apparently they have new abilities that they never had before. Rias has golden wings. Issei fired a purple beam. She is the god of the void. They is the ultimate life form. What in the name of Lucifer has happened to the two lovable idiots that they all knew and loved? Rias flew through the air at insane speed, narrowing her eyes as she approached the academy. Rias. Destoroyah, you better not have already to. Before Rias could finish her sentence, she stopped in mid-air and saw Issei holding not only a defeated Freed but Kokabiel as well. Both the freed and the fallen angel were covered in bruises and marks. Hell, even half of Kokabiel's wings were ripped off the body. Kokabiel. Damn you. Destoroyah. Freed. How? Issei chuckled. Issei. Because you both are simply weak. Rias? Destoroyah. The brown-haired boy turned his head and saw Rias Gremory. A smirk grew on his face as he raised an eyebrow. Issei. Oh, hello Ghidorah. What took you so long? Rias? Damn why? Well, this is certainly a surprise. Both Issei and Rias perked up at the new voice. They turned their heads and saw the source of it. They saw someone flying in the air, wearing white and golden armor that had blue crystals in it. On their back was a pair of wings that glowed like the stars in the night sky. Issei, this feeling. You're the White Dragon Emperor. Indeed, and who might you be? Issei chuckled. He quickly summoned his tail and used it to hold Freed up in the air. He held his arm out toward the armored figure who watched as it glowed red. From it came a red gauntlet with a green jewel and 2 golden spikes that manifest on the user's arm. Issei. I'm the Red Dragon Emperor. Just then the figure's wings started to glow blue. It's been a while, Red One. Silence, Red One. Issei chuckled. Issei. Drake can't respond right now, he's sleeping. Well then, we will see each other soon. Today isn't the right time to fight each other. Issei. I agree with you on that. Both Issei and the White Dragon Emperor stared off from each other for a moment, and the brown-haired boy soon tossed Kokabiel and Freed to him. Thanks, Issei rolled his eyes. We'll be seeing each other real soon. With that, the figure turned and began to fly off with the fallen and the priest in his possession.